Welcome, everyone, to Religion and Resilience. It's episode 4 today, and I'm really excited today to have Judd who's here with us today. Welcome, Judd.
Thank you. Thank you
Yes,
for
and we're
inviting.
excited to just have a dialogue with you today. And let me remind viewers to click subscribe to our channel if you haven't yet. And you'll get all the news and all the information. I think it even gives you a little hint that we're recording live when it comes up to that time. So feel free to follow us and enjoy these broadcasts. So again, it's religion and resilience, and the main focus of this is to help viewers, help all of us see how engagement, activity in one's religion can lead to resilience, greater inner strength to face the stressors, the challenges of life, which there are many, right? We have so many of those. And so religion can be a huge, huge help to us in those areas and help us be more resilient. So glad to have Judd here. And actually, before we get into Judd, just really briefly, the next couple sessions are going to be exciting as well. In March, we have 2 sessions coming up, March 18th and 25th. So we have to wait a few weeks. We got a few things going on. But March 18th, we're going to have Father Moses Brown on here. He's a priest in the Santa Rosa Diocese here in Santa Rosa, California. And then on the 25th, we'll have Rabbi Ted Feldman, who is, I think, Judd, I think you might know him. He's part of the Interfaith Council leadership here in Sonoma. So that show will be at 2 p.m. instead of 12. But you can find that information on our YouTube page as well. All right. Well, Judd I'm just going to share a little bit of his bio, and then I'll turn it over to you, Judd, to share some more. But Judd was born in Guangzhou, China, and he moved to the United States during his college years and was in the commercial management field in the early years of his career. He currently lives in Santa Rosa, California with his wife and daughter, and he works as a full-time hospice chaplain. And I want to thank you for doing that, Judd. That is very, very important and challenging work. He's also working towards his DMin, or Doctor of Ministry degree in spiritual direction through Garrett-Evangelical Theological Seminary with special interests in spiritual care, ethics, interreligious experience, discernment, writing, and decolonizing spirituality. Decolonializing spirituality. Redwood Forest Friends Meeting is his home place of worship, and he's well, I'll let you introduce from there, Judd. What
Yes.
more to add to that?
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for providing this opportunity and platform for us to get to know each other a little bit. Yeah. I as the short bio said, I was born and raised in another country, China, mainland China, which is about but my hometowns is about 2 hours drive or train from Hong Kong, which was about 10 million people that I grew up with. This is it's the same size as Chicago. So there was a very different experience when I born and raised and received education and then moved to California, Southern California. And then I stayed in LA and lived there, work, studied in Southern California, graduated from Azusa Pacific Seminary to get my Master of Divinity degree, and had a career change from business as entrepreneur to chaplaincy. My main area is hospice. Right now, I'm full time. We call spiritual care counselor, spiritual care coordinator in this hospice agency, ProMedica Hospice in Santa Rosa, serving Sonoma and Marine area. This is where I am. Mhm.
Thank you. You maybe for our listeners who might not be
Mhm.
familiar with what that is, spiritual care in a hospice environment. What
Mhm.
and and also, how did you come into that from the business world? Maybe could you share a little bit there?
Yes, yes. Well, I was born and raised in a atheist environment. You know, they call it atheist country, and my family house. Nobody called themselves religious or spiritual in my context. And but in that particular culture, you know, who, which was highly influenced by Confucianism, Buddhism, and Taoism, and it's hard to be non-religious or non-spiritual. It is part of the culture. It's part of our language. It's part of our philosophies and doing life. So I grew up in that particular context and get a very special interest in religion and spiritualities. And then when I moved to the States in Southern California, as an immigrant, as young immigrants, negotiating with my own ethnic identity, like many others, new immigrants. Then I practiced. Then I had an opportunity to practice Zen Buddhism, the Chinese branch, Zen
Hmm.
Buddhism in Los Angeles for about 7 or 8 years. Yeah, actively participate in reading and studying sutras, a lot of spiritual practice. So yeah, that was the seed, I would say, planted in my heart while
Hmm.
I'm doing business. And it's a great practice for me to involve a lot of meditation, sitting, and yeah, I have a lot of good conversations and lectures about their religious, their practice, and their philosophy. Then I got opportunity to get into to encounter, we call it got to know Christ when I was in my yeah, late 20s. I had the opportunity to got to know Christ in a Southern Baptist Chinese church in Southern California. So I got to experience and practice Christianity for quite some time, ever since 2012. Then
Real
after,
quick, Judd,
mhm,
that's quite a shift. I'm curious how. Well, it sounds like the seed of spirituality, just
mhm,
of this idea of transcendence, maybe was planted in you, and then coming to know about God,
mhm.
or Jesus Christ. How was that what was that shift like for you?
Um, that is definitely radical change and experience. It is a very still I consider very impactful personal experience to really feel the divine, to really pushing that particular evening when I went to a Christian music concert, in Cantonese, in my own mother tongue. And
Okay.
then that particular moment, also it's also intervened with my career and my but life has some ups and downs. So I experienced Christ in the valley of my life. So then from then on I just began practicing Christianities. um, that was I still consider a radical change. I still um,
Yeah.
process it, and along maybe my entry point is a little bit too radical, very different from my practice of Zen. But at the same time, but along the way, after years and of dialoguing and reconciling, I pretty enjoy this dual religious experience as well. I have no offense or defensive when people talk about, oh, you why you dip into, it seems to dip into two world and two religions, and how could you do that, or you're not faithful to one God. But for me it's it's a journey. It's a journey. It's
Yeah.
like many people I encounter in my hospice practice. People do experience different religions throughout their life, or even at the same time.
Mm. So you find that your own story really connects with those that you minister to in hospice?
Yes, yes, absolutely. I think that's it's just because of my backgrounds seems to be so colorful um, it, and diverse. It helps people to realize that this spiritual journey, or this it can be very diverse, very bumpy, and it can be very beautiful and colorful.
Mm. I
Hmm.
like that. Diverse, bumpy, and beautiful.
Hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
So you found or you became acquainted with Jesus Christ through the Southern Baptists,
Hmm.
and then it evolved from there for you into Quakerism.
Yeah, this is a very interesting development as well. When I became a Christian, um, very familiar, very interested in reading the Bible. I got my MDiv in biblical studies. Um, yeah, and I have because my seminary have a strong connections with one branch of Quakerism called Evangelical Friends Southwest. That was
Hmm.
the name of the denomination. They're more the evangelical part of branch of Quakerism. But along the way, yeah, I eventually found that this particular denominations and what they believe and practice is more I feel more comfortable with. And then and also this is a also has go along with my own life stories, ethnic identity as well. I feel myself maybe after 10 years of being in the Chinese communities, I wanted to be expose myself to a more diverse populations, and I can then engage with more second, third, fourth generations of Asian Americans, and even with other ethnicities, ethnic groups. That is, yeah, I become more and more comfortable and more willing to experience, you know, people with different colors, ideologies, theologies. That's how I got into eventually moved to a more liberal side of Quakerism. And after I moved to Santa Rosa about 2 years ago, I found that I really feel home with this Quaker meeting in Santa Rosa.
Oh, thank you. So you said, and that's the Friends meeting, correct? The
Hmm.
Redwood
Hmm.
Forest Friends.
Yes, yes.
And could you just, Judd? It sounds like you're bringing some of your your diversity and your background, ethnicity, your theology, your kind of amalgamation of Zen Buddhism and Christianity all together, and you found a great home where you feel like you really belong.
Mhm.
Could you share with us just a little bit, what are some of the tenets of the Quaker faith that you belong to? You said it's more of the liberal Quakerism.
Mhm. Mhm.
Just
Mhm.
for those who may not be familiar with Quaker faith,
Mhm. Mhm.
you share just a little bit about what aspects of the faith do you find yourself home with? What do you resonate with?
Well, I can give one example. There are definitely many aspects of it, but one example I found is very resonate with my personal belief and found myself very belong to is they believe everyone, every single person, no matter what their backgrounds, their beliefs, or there's no any religious involvement, there are that piece of, they call it that of God, or the inner light, or inward light, inner Christ in every single person, regardless how, their life situations, health conditions, and ethnicity. That is amazing to realize that, especially from a more conservative branch of Christianity. And it also reminds me of what, other religions or other religion or cultural experience I have overseas, and even the from the same experience, to see people more equally because of this, that of God or the inner light. We look at people, or the Quakerism or the Friends look at people who are different from us, more equally, and this is more um, natural for them to advocate, and especially for peace, nonviolence,
Mm-hmm.
and caring work. And I appreciate an analogy or a metaphor one of my quicker friends mentioned when we're in a worship. She said, "Well, it looks like I found Quakerism." She's talking about herself from the West, from the Christianity side of it, and then you found Quakerism from the East through the same tradition, and then we met each other at this place, and we found each other very enriching. And I do celebrate this metaphor,
Mm.
seeing each other, seeing this worship place, a place of worship, um, this community, not necessarily as a strict denomination or a specific institution who have to figure out who is in, who is out, but it's a place that we can peacefully, we appreciate each other, have a handshake and have a cup of tea or coffee. So that is the part I really appreciate these communities and their, their beliefs.
Thank you. So there's really an underlying feeling of respect for one another's differences and
Mhm.
backgrounds, but there's also a I guess a unifier, and that is that you said that the belief that Christ uh, Christ's influence is in each person.
in every person.
Yeah. And how does one experience that in Quakerism? How do you experience Christ's presence in others and in yourself? How is that typically displayed or experienced?
Yeah, that comes to the second part, the second beliefs that has really interested me, or the practice. Quakerism seems to have a or seeking a balance between contemplation or mysticism and activism.
Hmm.
They or tend to believe that it is up to the spirit, not up to us to really um, choose, or there are definitely different preferences. But whenever we decided or we take actions to have a virtual demonstration on the street, or we close our door and pray and remain silent, it has to come from the Holy Spirit.
Hmm.
It comes to the inner light, the inner Christ, the work of the light, rather than from the institutions or from some leaders. They 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 believe the inner leading of
Ah,
the spirit. So with the Quaker worship, on our branch, we call ourselves unprogrammed. Yeah, it's just an experience of usually an hour of silence, occasional, we call it waiting, silent worship. Basically, it's an experience of waiting for the spirit to move. Sometimes move us into deep silence, deeper reflection. Sometimes lead to a more verbal um, celebrations, songs, or some sharings.
mm-hmm.
That in that particular moments of quiet, silent worship is so precious for me, and also for many people nowadays as well. We don't really have, many people don't really have the luxuries of staying silent for 1 hour a week, and it's difficult.
Yeah.
Yep, and it's difficult. And
Unless you're
sometimes this silence really lead us to some actions, to some global and social concerns. So we take actions.
so the actions or the direction that you want to go sometimes comes out of that silence.
Yes, that's what I really believe. And we need a look for a balance between, how we balance our public life and also our contemplative life that we do, and also we contemplatively be as
Yeah.
a human being and group.
Well, I can see how your background in Zen Buddhism would really mesh well with the hour of silence, because I'm sure you spent many hours in silence in meditative practice.
Yes. Yeah, the well, we have definitely a um, uh, very important part, and it's very familiar because of silence. But there is a little bit difference that Quakers silent worships, between Quaker silent worships and a Buddhist meditations. Um, they're not, it's not which one is better than the other, but they're different um, functions, and their different intentions and goals. Um, yeah,
Yeah,
and I enjoy both of them.
yeah. I was just thinking maybe one of the biggest differences in the hour of silence within Quakerism, you're waiting for the Spirit to move upon the group to
Yep.
guide you.
Hmm.
Whereas in Zen practice, you're trying to quiet the mind and find that inner sort of connectedness with the self.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah. So, Judd, thank you for just helping us see some of those foundational principles in Quakerism and how maybe some of the I guess foundational guidelines. And I'm curious now if we could talk. I've mentioned this on previous episodes, but what we're seeing in our current generation, especially with the younger generation, that we're seeing a little bit of, I guess, reticence when it comes to talking about religion or experiencing religion. And but we also know, and I had my first guest on the show as a professor at Brigham Young University who talked about all of the studies that have been done highlighting how activity in one's religion can actually impact, for in a positive way, impact our inner strength. And I wonder, within your Quaker practice and experience, what are some of the tenets of Quakerism that you see that could help people build resilience for the difficulties in life? And what are some of
Mm.
those tenets? And maybe if you have any personal stories about how living your faith has helped you through some hard times,
Hmm.
or
Hmm.
others that you've ministered to in your practice.
Yes, yes. And I think when I looked at my practice in my Quaker Quakerism, and I also have to acknowledge that my faith also impacted by my chaplaincy work,
Mm-hmm.
to work mainly with people with end of life situation, or terminal illnesses, bereavement,
Mm-hmm.
and other hardships. And that is also, I consider them as very formative experience to my faith, that I can also share it with the people I worship with. And I also share my experience to my religious experience to my patients and my family. But most of the time we done listening, as
Mm-hmm.
we do in a lot in our quicker practice, spiritual direction practice, spiritual formation practice. Just help us to become a better listener. I don't.
Mm-hmm.
It is, matter as a in a religious context, is a better listener to others and to God and to the divine, noticing what time it is right now in God's timing, God's time. So it's easier to talk about resilience in a more with people without end of life situations. But I feel that we focus nowadays. People are more focused on spirituality more
Mm-hmm.
than religions. But at the same time, I consider myself both. I
Mm-hmm.
still don't know why we cannot keep both, like Zen and Christianities, and why can they talk dialogue with each other? And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, this always my religious experience, my spirituality helps me to think of a problem or a life situation, um, in a both both and rather than an either or
Hmm.
situation. And it is definitely harder. This is just equally difficult, but keeping and both options, serving two courses at once, it always been the eternal theme for my practice, for no matter the sane or in hospice. People don't want to give up hope, but they know the realities of the declining health
Hmm.
and death is imminent. So that is how um, religions and spirituality can come together to serve people. I know nowadays, religions uh, is intimidating and irritating and dividing for many peoples, especially in our country. But otherwise, we won't even change our name to spiritual care, to from chaplains to spiritual care in healthcare settings, because we want to include more people. We want to capture that particular um, spiritualities of many people. We do talk less about religions, but I want to borrow a writer's idea or opinions about religions. The writer's name is Diane Butler Bass. In her recent book about Christianity after religion, is the
Hmm.
end of the church and the new beginning, the beginning of awakening. She talked about the of origin of the religion or religious come from the Greek word religio, and we really don't really know what this original meaning of it, but she did a lot of good study and found out that it probably means reconnect or
Hmm.
reconnecting. And then she explored from that particular meaning of the words. And then I found it very helpful to reintroduce, rebrand our religions and religiosities, to the communities. And
Hmm.
by asking, what do you believe? What church do you go to? What denomination are you associated with? By by asking, what give you life? What,
Uh,
how do yes, and get to that particular um, part of the, I consider it the, a more formless, a more invisible part of this spirituality, so that people can explore from what they already doing, what they're already practicing,
well, it's kind of,
how they reconnect. Mhm.
it's really a revitalizing, the way you're speaking of religion in this meaning is a revitalizing or breathing freshness, a fresh breath into religion, in the sense that it's a connection with the divine in a certain within a certain context, and with others, like you
Yes.
mentioned.
Mhm.
Within your Quaker faith, the thing that speaks to you so much is the diversity of connections with other human beings, that coming from a variety of backgrounds. Almost like it reminds me of the story of Jesus speaking of the kingdom of God is like a net that's cast into the sea and catches all kinds of fish, you
Mhm.
know,
Yeah.
and this connection of all these fish together.
Hmm.
And I'm also reminded of the Latin meaning for religion, religiare, that root
Hmm.
that just means to bind
Yep.
together,
Yep. Hmm.
right? So you have that connection and binding. And what would you say to someone who is saying, how does this connection help how would this type of connection help me be more resilient or be able to withstand some of the struggles that I go through in my life?
Yeah, that's a good question. So when I ponder upon this questions, how can it benefit me and benefit how can this help me to get through what's going on around me and the globe. um my practice, my religious experience highly emphasize self-emptying. it
Mm,
it is by asking these questions, or inviting people to ask me questions, help me to clarify, what I am asking for the benefit of who or what.
mm-hmm.
So my practice continue to teach me these reconnections. It's it is not just about me. It
Uh,
is not just about this particular um, ego. Um, it's about others, or it's about God, or it's about a bigger realities.
mm,
So my culture and religious experience, and also my hospice practice, continue to remind me that because we are highly connected to others, to God, there definitely a deeper meaning that, or resilience,
mm-hmm.
can be found other than this. So yeah, I will highly emphasize community.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I think what I hear you saying is that, so if I'm facing a really big problem, like right now, uh, boy, our hearts and our prayers are with people in across the world, in Eastern Europe and Ukraine, and over there with people facing really tough challenges, and even in our country, just financial problems and relationship problems, and career challenges and health challenges, and with COVID and Omicron and all these things. Uh, what you're saying is that one of the practices in your faith that really seems to build a resilience is to empty one's ego or empty one's self out in, is it a reliance on Christ as through the Holy Spirit that can direct me in my life to see a bigger picture, to see a bigger perspective, to ultimately help me through those challenges?
Yes, that is this is the outcome you captured very well about, the how it it come out to be, but also the experience itself that we have to put into practice. Like you said, we have to active, you know participate in
Hmm.
something. I don't care that it is yoga practice, it is your AA group, or it is a grief counseling group, or interaction with someone, your counselors, chaplains. But through these activities, we just to, you know, open and be aware that we also tap into a deeper realities under the cert current the current on the surface of this chaotic world. There is a deeper realities in any religion. They were, they were just telling you there is a deeper or divine or the common goodness underneath, which is not visible. Usually, it won't draw a crowd. It won't make it to the headline.
Yeah.
But that is, and eventually it come out from what you said. You build resilience from that. The resilience is the fruit. This is the outcome. But the practice, but the experience itself is marvelous, is mystical, is undescribable. A author, a Quaker writer, Thomas Kelly, described this as almost as an experience of being stolen. Think about when, although a lot of people don't have the experience of being stolen. When you walk on the street and you found, where is that my wallet? Somebody just got too close to me or whatever. But think of it as your worry being stolen.
Oh, wow.
Your anxiety somehow along this year with my continued practice, sessions after session, I don't know how this happened.
It was stolen, huh?
My fear was somehow stolen by who? By the divine, or that is the amazing part of being in a continuous active practice. I won't say it is your practice, it is your efforts that make that happen. It has to come from somewhere else, no matter you call it God, spirit, the true self, or human resilience.
But what you're saying is that practice is required in order to create that space where the divine robbery can happen.
There's this encouraged. It's definitely encouraged, and this is my experience. Not everyone's experience. Something we see people, or we read from news, people wake up, change their minds, but we really don't know how.
So being okay with that mystery too that's something in your practice. That's all right. And you kind of let go. So these are some things that I think people can really, from what you're saying, within your faith tradition, people can really find relief being pickpocketed by God, in a sense, or by the divine, in that mysterious loss of one's worry.
Yep.
By I guess I'm thinking of how Jesus teaches to don't worry about tomorrow, let tomorrow take care of itself. It's helpful if we are less attached to the things in our pocket, and he can take those away. That's a wonderful image, Judd.
Yeah.
Well, boy, we've got just maybe a couple more minutes. I wonder could you kind of finish with maybe just sharing, do you have any personal experiences that you'd be willing to share where you felt like you had a worry that was stolen from you?
I experienced this in weekly basis in my hospice practice. No matter if it's our patients, worry, anxiety, despair. There are emotions or concerns that cannot be consoled or cannot be comforted, even though you're the most skillful chaplains, masters, because they're dealing with end of life, you've been dealing with death and dying,
Right.
loss of spouse, loss of children. It is not really up to me, the spiritual counselor, the chaplain, to say a few words, pray a few words, but continue to be present, walk with them, provide companion. We really don't know how people accept or they let go, but we feel the peace many times when people do get counseled, comforted, and they face their life again, even through death and loss and grief.
Mhm.
So that helps me to put less um, rely on myself less, or blame myself less
Mhm.
to not doing enough, or not unable to stop their crying. It is a process of letting go, letting go our expectations, our even our the belief on our own practice. But we are practicing, and we do letting go, always both, always holding this, and respect the mystery.
Yeah. Well, that's powerful, Judd. Respecting the mystery, and I think you captured that beautifully in your depiction of your faith and Quakerism, and being open to the Spirit, the Holy Spirit leading, and I love that image of a divine pickpocket, you being stolen. I think that'll stick with me for a while. So, Judd, thank you so much for being on our video cast today. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you for all that you've shared, and thanks for those who viewed today or who view afterward. But God bless you, and
Thank you.
may that His peace go with you, Judd, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Okay.
Okay, thank you. It's my honor. Bye bye.
Right.